I'm very inspired by Dre's presentation. And thank you for that, Sean. It gives me a caveat into kind of telling you all how I ended up here. I am actually a recent graduate. I only received my master's degree in 2022, and I began working at EcoWorks earlier this year. But I'll go all the way back and kind of tell you where this all began for me in my journey toward environmental justice and sustainability. I'm from Detroit, born and raised. It's tattooed on my body. It's on my necklace. I'm very proud, and Detroiters are very proud people. So I was born in Detroit, and I went to elementary school there. And in third grade, I want to say our utility, Detroit Edison, DTE, came to my elementary school. And this is ironic, right? They gave us those kits. This is my first time ever hearing about global warming. Global warming, this is 2005. So it was global warming. My first time hearing about global warming and the ozone layer and the importance of saving our water. And they came to our school and they told us all these things, and they gave us this little kit to take home. And in this kit, it had like a water-saving shower head and all these tips about turning off your water when you're brushing your teeth, and turning off the lights when you're not in a room, when you're not using, appliances and things. You should unplug them. And my mom, she tells this story to everyone, and she told it to everyone at my graduation. I'm telling it to you. I came home that day, third grade me, and I was in a tizzy. I was so worked up and concerned, and I'm just like, Mom, like the ice caps are melting, and the ozone is just the hole is getting bigger and bigger, and our planet is getting hotter. And from her perspective, and maybe to an extent now, my mother was born in the 60s, she didn't really, it was funny to her. It was like, oh, she's worked up. And like, oh, it's good that she cares about this thing. Let alone the fact that I am 27 and I live in Michigan, I live in Detroit still. In the last 10 years, I can myself have seen the lack of, or the change in our climate. We would have snowy Halloweens. I can remember snowy Halloweens as a child. The last 7 years, we haven't seen snow until almost January. That's something that I have seen in my own lifetime. That's something that I have observed. This is like, it's anecdotal, but it's research, damn it. Like, it matters, So, that was little me. And then I was always an inquisitive child. I always loved science and I always loved math. So that led me to pursue engineering as a career choice and idea. So I got my undergraduate degree at the University of Michigan. And fun fact, I went to college in 2015. And if I had graduated in 4 years, I would have graduated in what? 2019. I did it in 5. So what year did I graduate into? 2020. And I thought to myself, as I was approaching graduation, that, I know that my real passions and I know that the things that I want to do are to impact community members and people like myself. I am not from a rich family. I am not from a wealthy family. To this very day, I'm not from a family of homeowners. That is a privilege. And I'll get into the work that we do, but a lot of the work that we do is with homeowners in Detroit. I say all that to say that it was a big deal for me to for the work that I do, to contribute and to help people that I feel like are like me. So in 2020, I was faced with, well, what do I do now? Like, I can go get a job, but is that even something that I want to do if nothing is sure of anything at all? Nothing is sure of nothing. Like, up was down in 2020 and left was right. So I was like, well, maybe I should just do what I know and stay in school, stay in school a little longer. So then the question was, well, what am I going to pursue? If I'm saying that, the degree that I currently have, I don't feel equipped to go into a community and be able to make the kind of change that I feel like I want to see. I felt like I had all these amazing technical skills and problem-solving strategy and ability, but I had no social context to be able to apply it. Thank you so much for, speaking earlier again, because I had the similar, experience of, ooh, this is great and fun, but I found myself and I did intern at NASA, and I find myself at NASA. That was kind of the first place where it kind of clicked for me that there are a lot of people who seek out engineering and not to solve the world's problems, but to kind of tinker. And that's not horrible, but if you're taking money and resources that could be used to help people to tinker, you know, it's, in my opinion, it's just who are we serving in the end? And I think that the work that we do should serve people. More importantly, the people who need it the most. So thank you. So I decided that I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to pursue sustainability. And lo and behold, my own university, the University of Michigan, had an amazing program called the SEAS program. And I was able to find an amazing advisor in Tony Reams. Yes. He was my advisor, and he was actually the first person I came to when I was facing this dilemma, mind you, and I was just like, you know, tell me all about SEAS, tell me about what's offered here. And we talked about energy justice and what that meant, and environmental justice and what that could mean. And I was sold. I met him at this one conversation, and that was the beauty of, you know, me already being a student there. It was as easy as just me going to Tony's office and sitting down and having that conversation. And he was gracious enough to speak with me and advise and inform me. Fast forward, I actually did my master's project with EcoWorks Detroit. So it's really a full circle moment for me to be here and to be working here. And my master's project actually was on, we created a framework to implement resilience hubs in the city of Detroit. And the Eco Detroit model that I'm going to talk about today is still very similar. It's not the exact same because resilience hubs aren't the exact same as eco districts and all of those specifics. But yeah, you know, I find myself feeling that I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be because I can count all of these different instances that have kind of led me here. So with that being said, I'm going to get into EcoWorks' Eco Detroit model. So firstly, I joined EcoWorks about 3 months ago, and this is all, this is our envisioning of how we're going to approach the Eco Detroit model because it was given to me. It was given to me as my baby, so I'm going to treat it as such. And in this stage, we are in the envisioning stages. We're working with our community organizations and everything. But I'll just start from the beginning of what is even our mission? What are we doing here? And our mission is very similar to the purpose of an eco district. And that's the model that we've modeled ourselves after again. Our model provides residents and community organizations with resources to achieve healthy, affordable, resilient, and energy secure homes and neighborhoods. And our 3 main goals are sustainability, resilience, and equity. That is what is at the top of everything that we do. Next slide, please. I want to kind of stop here because this is about the kind of data that we collect and the kind of models that we want to make of specific Detroit neighborhoods. A lot of the, well, not a lot of, all of the services that we provide currently are to homeowners. Detroit is a city that has every single one of its zip codes is considered a disadvantaged community. So that means that technically all of the equitable work that we're doing, all of the work that we would do with homeowners in Detroit is considered to be equitable work. Detroit is a very specific city in that homeowners are, in my opinion, specifically low-income homeowners are under attack. Detroit is a city that has allowed for water bills to be tacked onto homeowners' property taxes. So there are people who have been foreclosed upon and their homes have been stripped from them through a utility. Not because they didn't pay their property taxes, but because they couldn't afford their property taxes and a water bill and an electric bill and. So that is a real phenomenon, and there's no solution, there's no reparations, there's no one to stop it. There's also, on top of that, the attack on Detroit homeowners, in that Detroit homeowners were overtaxed. It has been proven, there's research, have been overtaxed by I think the number is like $600 million across a 7-year time span. They were overtaxed. And again, there's no reparations, there's no one to hold anybody accountable. There are just people, again, being systemically, in my opinion, stripped of their homes. And again, specifically, these are affecting low income and people of elders even. A lot of homeowners in Detroit are seniors as well. So it's, in my opinion, a direct attack on those particular community members. And the work that we are doing is to collect information on specifically environmental assessments of the different conditions and the different things that people are experiencing across the city, because on one side of the city, there is poor air quality. On one side, there is a huge floodplain. On the other side, or the entire city really, there's the high heat index. So there's a matter of mapping that information, again, mapping the social and economic information that I was kind of speaking about, and then mapping infrastructure. Detroit is a very old city. Detroit is older than the United States. It is an old city, and our infrastructure is old, our homes are old. Air conditioning is, in my opinion, like a luxury, because it is not a commonality amongst homes, not well, they're not in apartments either really, but not, something that's considered, I guess, maintained highly, but homes that everyday people live in. Air conditioning is a true luxury. Central air conditioning, or even heat pump air conditioning, is considered to be a true luxury there. So that's kind of where how we're baselining and assessing each of our neighborhoods that we're including here. Next slide, please. And this strategic planning is around specifically the offerings that EcoWorks has in our specialty. It's in renewable energy, so offering and helping folks get access to solar energy, equitable electrification. I think that everyone, I hope by the end of today, knows kind of what electrification is. But again, equitable electrification, weatherization and building upgrades. Again, before you even get to the electrification, a lot of homes have to go through weatherization. And before you get to weatherization, a lot of homes have to go through rehabbing and health and safety. All of those things have to happen before you even get to an electrification standpoint. And a lot of Detroit homes are not ready for electrification. So that's, again, where we step in, and that's our expertise. And workforce development. So preparing a workforce to service all of these things that we're trying to implement, like solar panels and heat pump technology and water heaters. Next slide, please. And of course, again, I keep using the word equitable, and I keep talking about, Detroit and all of these people. How do we know what they're experiencing? How do we, conversations have to be had. So community engagement is the pillar, in my opinion. It's the standing pillar of our Eco Detroit model. And these are 3 questions that kind of encompass a lot, which are, what are your current engagement efforts? We work directly with community-based organizations that are already doing work in communities. So that's kind of, if you've never heard of eco districts, that is what eco districts do. They are anchored in community-based organizations that are already in existence, they already have connections, and they already have community trust. Our job is to provide them with resources. That's it. That's what our Eco Detroit model is providing these community organizations with resources. And through our engagement, we have to answer these questions, which are, what are the goals that you want to achieve? What do you want to see for your neighborhoods? What are your current engagement efforts? Mainly because, we could say, let's go send a bunch of emails. But if this community is full of elders who don't use phones and they read their mail, then that's not effective. So again, we defer to them. What are your engagement efforts, and how do we support that? And if you want to expand them as well, how do we support that? And what are your community's local environmental concerns? As I just said, Detroit is just one city, but there are different things facing people across different neighborhoods and different parts of the city. So establishing what have been your experiences, and I want to stop here to kind of talk about that because the biggest barrier to community engagement in this space, in my opinion, is the verbiage. It's and how we relate what is happening to people and what they're experiencing in their homes to climate change. People don't broadly know or care about climate change, but they care about the fact that their basement keeps flooding every 2 weeks. They care about the fact that they've been begging FEMA for extra money. A lot of people don't know that there is a large FEMA establishment in Detroit because of the consistent flooding incidents that happen in Detroit, and the mold in people's homes and all the furniture they've had to throw away. Thank you. Those kinds of things are what people understand, and that's what they're experiencing. It's directly related to climate change. So that's the kind of conversations that are important to have in community engagement as well, is how do you make those connections to people or to everyday people who don't have time to, or maybe even the desire, that's their choice, to, look into what's a heat pump? What does it do? Could it, does it save the planet? Do I care that it saves the planet? Can it save me money? You know what I mean? So it's how you frame it, I think. Next slide, please. And of course, if we are setting goals and if we're trying to help people, you have to be able to measure it. You can't manage anything you don't measure. So any programming has to be managed and measured. So establishing performance indicators, again, depending on what the goals are that are set out, okay, how do we measure that? Is it measured through decreased energy burden? Is it measured through reduced energy bills? How are we measuring our success here in trying to achieve whatever goals have been agreed upon between us and our community members? Reporting, how are we, if we are collecting all this information, how are we sharing it with them? What are the best ways that that communication can happen? Again, what are those avenues to sharing that information? Is it online? Is it, door knocking? Is it canvassing? Is it, just figuring out the best ways to share? And how often do you share that information with community members? And then, allowing for feedback mechanisms. Where have we failed? Where can we improve? What have we done good? What has actually made a difference thus far? And how do we measure that as well? Last slide, or I'm sorry, this is perfect. And of course, education and advocacy. Again, we've been talking about all of these amazing things, but it doesn't matter if people don't know how to use a heat pump, or how to maintain one, or how to keep it clear, and all of those things. So community education, and there's a slew of ways to do community education about specific technologies. But of course, youth programs as well, because in my opinion, there just aren't enough youth in these community organizations doing this kind of work. A lot of them are on social media. So the thing that I would want us to do would be to use social media to engage them. And something I think would be really awesome would be to be able to recruit an Eco Detroit ambassador, someone who, maybe it's me, but because I'm youth, but but just again, trying to come up with creative ways to engage our community at different levels and educate them at different levels as well. And then public awareness campaigns. Canvassing is something that a lot of people do. Interestingly enough, Detroit is a city that if you sit outside of a bar long enough and you go back outside, there's a poster on your car. Every place isn't like that, but it's very specific to, you're laughing, maybe those type of places. There's a flyer, but you would think that it's for something good. It's usually for a club or a hookah bar. But that's a way that people share information in Detroit with each other. It's literally just placing things on people's cars. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really creative if you're trying to do some sort of canvassing and engagement. And tabling at local events. It's a city that has lots of pop-up shops. People will pop up with lots of vendors and folks show up and they come here to buy and engage, but it's a community space. And it's one that I don't think enough folks on our side interact with. So next slide. That's all that I have. Hi, Sean, yes.
So we share a grant, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we are.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing with that?
Yes, actually, so the Energy Futures Grant is pretty much funding all of this in a sense. We're submitting our final documents tomorrow for our grant, and it's a DOE grant, the Energy Futures Grant. What we submitted was our eco district model, and the grant is to fund creation of more districts. Currently, we only have 4, and currently we're only engaging with 3. So in order to build that out, what we're missing is capacity and resources. So the Energy Futures Grant we're going to use to help fund and build out this program to be better funded and better resourced. It's just me today. Today it's just me. So if I'm being quite frank, I'm one person. So yeah.
I really appreciate that you guys are giving resources to existing community groups. What have you found to be the most effective when you're trying to engage those community groups? And they might not care about climate. They might be working on housing or food insecurity or something else. What do you find are the messages that really resonate with folks?
If I'm being quite honest, transparency. I feel like a lot of folks or a lot of organizations, because they want to maintain trust, they lie. You know what I mean? It's like we don't want them to think we're incompetent, but lying doesn't build trust. So I think that transparency is really important. And if I'm also just being honest, having something to give them, something tangible. It doesn't have to be money per se, but people are in need today. They don't want to hear, we're planning, we're hoping, one day. They're in need today. So what can you do today? So currently, since I said just now that I am the resource, I'm serving our communities in that way, from that standpoint of, well, what do we all have today? What can we do today? So it doesn't look as well built out as 100 homes in each neighborhood getting all this attention. But yeah, it is just like that. You're honest with people, in my opinion, and give them something tangible.
Michael, last question?
Yeah.
My understanding is that the population of Detroit has dropped a lot from what was, let's say, 75 years ago. There's a lot of land that previously had buildings on it, no longer does. So are there things that you're aware of or you're involved in for reusing that land and using it in a creative way to benefit the people who live in Detroit?
Definitely. Thank you for bringing that up. So there actually is a lot of lots in Detroit. That's what we call them. They're just lots. They're lots of land. And yes, there is actually a lot of folks have begun to buy the lots around their own homes to maintain them, one, because the city hasn't been properly maintaining. I guess maybe they're just the sheer number of them, but they aren't as maintained as well as folks would like. And if there's one right next to your home, anything can happen there. So a lot of folks have begun to buy them for that reason, for safety and maintenance. Other folks have begun to buy them to do community gardening, for urban agriculture. At certain scales, of course, you get into the permitting and the what you can do and what you can't do, but individual homeowners have had a lot of success in doing a lot of that, in purchasing the land and repurposing it for themselves. Thank you.